I've seen firsthand how good collaboration can drive a business like Carwow forward. Like, there's nothing more rewarding than when you work together to achieve something, whether that's your team, whether that's with people in a project team in the wider business, or even externally, right, with partners. When you have a goal and you work together to make that goal happen, there's nothing more rewarding than that.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Identity Architects, the InfoSum podcast that spotlights the leaders in the media industry shaping the future of data-driven advertising. I'm your host, Ben Cicchetti, and this week I am joined by Victoria Bruce, Senior Media Leader at Carwow. Victoria, welcome to Identity Architects.
Hi, Ben. Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
I'm excited to learn more about you. I'm a fan of Carwow, so I'm excited to learn more about Carwow. But for anyone who doesn't know you, can you just give us a quick introduction to yourself?
Yeah, of course. I'm Victoria, or lots of people in the industry call me VB. I am the Senior Agency Media Lead at Carwow. I've been in Carwow for the last 5 years, helping to build out its commerce media proposition, essentially, and now its offsite proposition. And in my previous life, I have worked in lots of the big publishing houses, always in kind of media partnerships. So I've been at Hearst, I've been at The Mirror, and most recently at Evening Standard and The Independent as well. So that's me in a nutshell.
Amazing. And commerce media is the thing right now. So we've definitely got a lot to cover off from that perspective.
It really is.
But we'll start with our rapid fire set of questions designed to get to know you a little bit better. Starting with, what is your earliest memory of advertising?
My earliest memory of advertising. So I guess I was a child of the 90s, right? There were some really iconic TV ads at the time. But do you know what? I think the earliest memory I have, and I can't believe I'm about to sing this on a podcast, but do you remember the jingle? If you like a lot of chocolate on your biscuit, join our club. That one.
Classic. Yeah.
I think the ad is older than me, but it was on for years when I was a kid. So I think there's definitely something to be said for a jingle. Because I still remember it. However, I'm not going to tell you how many years later. And I mean, just think about the recent times. We've got like Go Compare. I would say, that is my earliest memory, and one that certainly sticks with me.
I love that. And it's so interesting how often it is a jingle or a visual cue that kind of people bring up when we discuss kind of their earliest memories. If you take yourself back to those days, hearing that commercial on TV, hearing that jingle, what did you want to be when you were younger?
I loved performing arts when I was younger. I definitely wanted to be on the West End. I was obsessed with it growing up. But unfortunately, I was arguably okay at acting and dancing, but unfortunately, I was really, as you've just heard, I was really not blessed in the singing area. So even my 3-year-old now asks me to stop singing his songs. So unfortunately, that was never going to work out for me, which is a real shame because it would have been great. But I do think that especially the acting and the dancing really helped build my confidence. And I think that is something that I have a lot. I'm incredibly confident in what I do. And I think it's probably thanks to a lot of that when I was growing up.
Yeah, I agree. I love that. And, the brutal truth from kids is going to be hard at times. But obviously with that not working out, not ending up on the West End, what was your first job in either advertising or marketing?
So what you mean when I didn't make it to the West End stage, I actually ended up selling the classified advertising in the women's weekly mags over at what was then Nat Mags, which is now Hearst. That's where I started out. Think clairvoyance, psychics, gambling hotlines. I had to make so many calls a day to all these various types of small businesses, which actually was really fun, and I had a great time doing it. And it did actually give me some great sales skills, I would say, believe it or not. But yeah, we had a lot of fun in those kind of classified days when I was kind of a grad.
Yeah, I think those early jobs are so interesting, and they give such a kind of a bedrock to a lot of what we do as time goes on. What do you think it was then about the advertising industry that drew you in, and then what kind of keeps you in it to this day?
Yeah, I think given my West End dream didn't work out, I think, I've always been quite a creative person, but I've never really been very artistic. So, when it comes to like drawing or painting or anything like that, I'm not very good at it. I've never been very good at it. And I think when you're young, you don't, but you don't really understand. To you, creative means you have to be, an artist or a
Mm.
dancer. Actually, I realized, I think quite quickly, especially from my first role in media, that I could still be really creative using my mind, but not actually have to be artistic. So I think, and I think I carry that to this day, to be honest. Everything I do, actually, we always have to look at it in a creative way. And I think that's what keeps me in it for sure.
Yeah, I agree. It's the art and the science of the marketing industry, and yeah, both sides are exciting. And clearly now being able to do the kind of the creative work you do, coming up with different solutions, different commerce media options are obviously super exciting. You must get to engage with a lot of different people, kind of at different stages of their career. So, what advice would you give to someone who's just starting in the media and advertising industry?
Yeah, good question. I think if I was just to pull out a couple of key things that I would share with, say, myself, if I was starting out now, I
Mm.
think I would say, I think the number one thing would be embrace and build your network. Now we've got LinkedIn, right? It's such a great platform to use to make sure that you add every single person you meet, you come across within your working life, whether that's a partner, external partner, or anybody internally as well. I think building out that network and really embracing it is something that everybody should be doing. I've seen it work. I've seen how much our industry can really rally behind someone who kind of needs some help on LinkedIn. And you think, wow, these people are being so generous with their time. And that is just, I think, such a beautiful thing about our industry. And that I think as long as you embrace that network and build it whenever you can from the very get go, I think that's going to put you in great stead for the rest of your career.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. It's super important. We are such a people-driven industry, and I have to tell people they often, people sometimes feel embarrassed sending out tons of like LinkedIn requests when they meet someone for the first time. I'm like, just do it. No one is judging you for sending them a request. They're just either accepting or, I guess they could ghost you. But that's kind of the worst that can happen is they ghost you. So always
Yeah,
send out those
exactly.
requests.
Yeah, so true.
A two-part question. What keeps you awake at night? So I guess what's the stress factor? And then what gets you up in the morning? What's your motivational factor?
Well, I can easily answer what gets you up in the morning because I have a 3-year-old that thinks that 5 a.m. is an acceptable time to be up every
Yeah,
morning. So
that'll
I'm
do
going to
it.
answer that he gets me up in the morning, to be perfectly honest. In terms of keeping me awake at night, I would say, I think, do you know what? I think for me, it's about, are we servicing and inspiring our clients and partners enough? And I say that because being Carwow and being part of the automotive category, we really have a finite number of partner brands that we can really work with. And it's so crucial that we give them the best possible service and we can deliver those results for them. And I think that really keeps me awake at night because I'm like, oh, are we doing enough for this brand? Are we partnering with them enough? Should we be doing this? Are we servicing these guys enough? Because we need to make sure that those partnerships are a success because there really is only a limit. And we'll get onto the fact that it is growing, which is arguably a good thing.
Yeah.
But there is still a finite number of automotive brands. So it's really important for us that we make sure that that all of those brands that we work with are getting the best level of service and performance from our partnerships.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And yeah, super important. You obviously mentioned the 3-year-old. So you've got about 7 years to practice for the question I'm about to ask, which is how would you describe what you do within media and advertising to a 10-year-old?
To a 10-year-old, okay, to my 3-year-old, I
Yeah.
definitely, well, actually, to be fair, I can't imagine 10-year-old probably is different. I don't even know yet. This is quite scary that in 7 years he'll be 10. Um, I, I'm going to keep it really simple. I help people decide what car to buy next. There you go.
Yeah.
In a nutshell.
That's great.
That's it.
Yeah. when you work for a brand like Carwow, it kind of makes it that a little bit easier because you've got that kind of recognizable brand. Everyone knows who Carwow is. So I think that's great.
Exactly.
Final of the rapid fire questions. Personal favorite of mine. I am quickly realizing it's not a personal favorite, the people that I interview on this podcast. If there was a song that was a soundtrack to your life, what would it be?
Do you know what? This one actually, I do know the answer to this one for me because there is a song that has cropped up at very key moments in my life. And actually, that is the Beatles' Here Comes the Sun.
Mm,
So um, it was one of the songs on the soundtrack to my favorite film as a kid, which for my sins was The Parent Trap. So it was a
classic.
soundtrack on that, yeah, absolute classic. And then traveling has always been a big part of my life. I've always really enjoyed traveling, and my husband and I took a career break in 2015. So we took 18 months out traveling, which was obviously phenomenal.
Yeah.
Essentially chasing the sun right around the world, and that song always reminds me of that amazing time that we had. And then I think because of that, I also walked down the aisle to that song. So actually, that's a real no-brainer for me. It would be "Here Comes the Sun."
That's an amazing choice. One of my favorite songs in the world. And we have a
Oh,
playlist
no
where we
way!
add all these songs. So I now get to add that to the playlist, which I'm super happy about.
Oh, good.
So let's dig into you, the industry, and Carwow a little bit more. So I'm a big fan of Carwow. I first became aware of Carwow through your content, your YouTube videos hosted by Matt Watson, doing all the reviews of the of cars. He is the go-to I go to when I'm thinking about getting a new car. Those are the
Good
reviews
to
I go
hear.
and watch. But for anyone who's unfamiliar, could you explain who Carwow is?
Yeah, absolutely. So in a nutshell, Carwow is essentially the UK's largest new car marketplace. So we're responsible actually for 12% of all of the new car sales in the UK. And ultimately, our mission is really to offer consumers a really simple end-to-end journey when either researching, buying, or selling a car, which in all honesty, is normally a very complicated process. And that's what we're here to do, is to take that complicated process and really streamline it and make it really simple for consumers to make that car change. As you mentioned, we do have the UK's biggest automotive YouTube channel. It's now got over 10 million subscribers. It's actually, interestingly, the fourth biggest automotive channel in the world, which
That's
is
amazing.
wild. Yeah, it actually drives 60% of the traffic to the Carwow website as well. So it does a fantastic job of bringing us organic traffic as well from all of that amazing content that Matt Watson and his team obviously create. And then I guess it's worth noting that at the beginning of last year, we also acquired Autovia, which has the really iconic automotive brands of Auto Express and Evo. And then for any European listeners, we also have Carwow in Germany and Spain as well.
Amazing. I love that. And as a content marketer at heart, I love the fact that the content that's being created through Carwow is driving such incredible business. So that's, very affirming to or reaffirming to the work that I do. And obviously, Carwow is often described as a scale up success story. Now in Series E, high growth organization. How does working in that environment compare to your time you mentioned at more traditional publishers like Hearst, Reach, and the Evening Standard?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the difference actually is quite dramatic. The main difference I would say is the speed. The speed at which we move in this type of business is absolute lightning, compared to the more established businesses I've worked in. I think it's the nature of a scale up. Everybody gets involved, but everything has to move 10 million miles an hour. I have probably learned more in the last 5 years at Carwow than I've learned in my whole career to date. And to be honest, that's probably not necessarily true of media and marketing, but it certainly is true of business. I've learned a huge amount in the last 5 years, in terms of what to do and what not to do, to be honest, in a business and in a scale up business, and how when things I'm there when things go, we're there to celebrate the wins, and we also see when things need to change and things aren't working out, and actually, but it's always about speed. The faster we work, the faster we can achieve things, essentially. So I'd say that's the speed is going to be the biggest biggest difference.
Yeah, and you mentioned just then that you've learned more in the last 5 years at Carwow than in your career before. What do you think's been the biggest driver, pun intended, of that accelerated learning curve?
Love a car pun, always do. Um, I would say I guess a couple of drivers there. I kind of mentioned agility, like that's a huge driver of our learning in terms of like the speed at which we can pivot and move direction when we need to. There's also the constantly looking for new ways to diversify revenues. That's a really
Mm,
key part of driving our learnings. And we want to move quickly. And, if something's not going to work out, that's absolutely fine. But it's about trying it quickly and then finding that out and then switching routes if we need to. And then I'd say the biggest one is probably collaboration. So that's, don't get me wrong, that's not to say that obviously working in more established businesses, you still got to be really collaborative, and everywhere I've worked always has been. But in Carwow, it's kind of a whole other kettle of fish. You're collaborating very much not just with your team, but with lots of different people across the business. And then also externally with partners as well. I'm not sure if it's the kind of scale up nature of the business, but also with our partners, we also work really collaboratively as well. And I think that has really driven my learning, especially over the last 5 years.
yeah, that's fascinating. And you obviously also mentioned Carwow acquiring Autovia at the beginning of 2024. What have you learned from bringing two media businesses together, and what operational challenges have stood out during kind of that process of bringing those businesses together?
Yeah, well, it was definitely as wild as it sounds. Like I've never been in an acquiring business and I've never been in a business that's acquired one either. And wow, it's been an absolute whirlwind,
Yeah.
couple of years, and obviously last year especially. You know, we ingested over 100 people into the business overnight. In our team specifically, just we had a very, very small media team of three. It went from 3 to 13 overnight.
Wow.
We had to really engage all of the kind of values that we stood for. So, kind of basically moving fast and collaborating. We kind of really had to use those skills as quickly as we could with our new colleagues to try and forge and find the way that we can work together best and still drive and what's going to work for our partners as well. So, ultimately we really quickly had to have very open, honest, transparent conversations with each other and really identify each other's strengths. And Autovia it's over 25 years old. That business, Auto Express, has been going for 25 years. So you've got a really well established business merging with a business like Carwow, and actually it turned out, and I don't know whether it was luck or that is partly why we acquired them, of course, is because actually their strengths were our weaknesses, and vice versa. So actually by acquiring that business, we've actually you know brought in these people and processes that are going to make us stronger as a business. And then, of course, operationally, it still is, to be honest, at times, it still is a lot to work through. We actually prioritized working through what would work best for our partners first. So we kind
Mm,
of made sure that we were always asking. Last year, we were constantly asking for feedback. We even had an event where we kind of opened up about the process, talking it through with everyone, being very transparent. So we made it work for them first and foremost, and then we kind of moved on to focusing on how actually we need to translate that internally and operationally to make it work properly, seamlessly, as effectively internally as possible. And that is, well, it has been an ongoing um, plight of ours, and we are really almost there. We've got one more operational project left to deliver, which actually should be complete in the next couple of weeks. So then I think I feel like we can say, we've fully completed the acquisition to the best that we could do as well.
yeah, that's amazing. And there was two themes that came out in that, and one of them was around collaboration, both internally and externally. So that's whether it's across your kind of three commercial teams or externally with partners. Why do you see collaboration as so central to growth in today's media ecosystem?
That's a really good question. I think it's because I've seen firsthand how good collaboration can drive a business like Carwow forward.
Mm,
Like, there's nothing more rewarding than when you work together to achieve something, whether that's your team, whether that's with people in a project team in the wider business, or even externally, right, with partners. When you have a goal and you work together to make that goal happen, there's nothing more rewarding than that, and empowering. And I think that ultimately drives the growth of any business. Um, I think the next step, though, and I think one that could be a bit of a game changer for the industry, is actually data collaboration between businesses. So obviously we're already doing that with the likes of InfoSum and ITV, but I mean, there's a lot more that can be done in that space, and imagine the things that could be achieved if we kind of built data collaborations between really complementary businesses that are kind of all built on this great first party data. So, just thinking about it, if we had a collaboration with an insurance platform or a home buying marketplace, you start to then build a picture of like these key life moments, and that's when you can
yeah.
start to see how it can get really exciting about pinpointing these audiences with really targeted and crucially personalized relevant content as well. So I think that's something that's also something in terms of collaboration that I'm really excited to see moving forward. And also competitors doing it together as well. Like, there's the
Yeah.
ITV Channel 4 Sky collaboration on that, on their new advertiser marketplace. Like, that's fantastic. And coming from traditional publishers, there was a couple of early doors collaborations between competitors there as well that have been really successful. So yeah.
I've always been super excited by that. It's one of the biggest benefits I've always thought of the InfoSum technologies that I did, that you can collaborate with competitors because there's no risk of them getting hold of your data. There's no risk of them getting access to any more insight than you're willing to share with them. So I completely agree. That kind of competitive collaboration, you might
Mm.
call it, is super interesting. And it's all built on, and Carwow itself is built on data and insight. And media is only one of three revenue streams in the kind of wider business.
Yeah.
How does that kind of multi-stream model influence your approach to growth?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's no secret, right, that the most successful businesses have numerous revenue streams. You protect yourself from economic pressures that might not be foreseen, and we've all seen that, right, after COVID. So, but actually, funnily enough, post COVID, whilst most industries were seeing a really strong return to business, the automotive industry was actually hit by a massive chip shortage.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know if you heard of it, but there's like, believe it or not, there's like over 1,000 chips in every car, more if
Mm,
it's an electric vehicle, which meant that, of course, a low supply of this meant there was low supply then of new cars, and you weren't able to inquire, which is one of Carwow's main revenue streams. And then, of course, if you haven't got new cars to sell, marketers and marketing teams are going to reduce their activity because they don't actually have the cars to sell. So that
yeah.
had an impact on our ad revenue stream at the time, which, post COVID, all these industries were seeing, return to growth, and we were kind of seeing the opposite. But luckily, because we're a really agile business, not only did we kind of pivot our efforts into used cars, so away from new cars, but we also saw great success from launching our Sell My Car product. So that allows consumers to sell their cars through Carwow. And that was all still happening. So the growth in this area meant that we could really ride out the negative impact of the chip shortage kind of on our other revenue streams. So I feel like I really learned firsthand there, like, the more you can diversify your revenue streams, not only are you going to drive growth, but you're also going to protect your business at the same time.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, having those kind of multiple revenue streams is super important. Diversification of income is super important. And one of the other things that obviously is super important at Carwow is first party data. And that's become just a huge focus for the industry as a whole. And Carwow is sat on hugely valuable insights and signals. What principles guide your approach when deciding when, how, and with whom to collaborate on that data?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you've touched on it, right? First, everyone knows now that first party data is really, really highly valuable. But like, for automotive with such a complex buying journey, Carwow data is absolute gold dust. Like we've
Mm.
always used it to show our automotive partners insights that they just can't get from anywhere else, let alone their own data. And quite often we see these big brands, they'll base whole strategies on the insights that we're able to give them because they're so strong.
Yeah.
Um, but it is only in the last few years that we've really launched partnerships now that allow the use of this data off-site for marketing purposes. And I think some people might think we were late to the game in doing that, but actually it was more of a strategic decision on our part to really grow the on-site commerce media proposition first. And I think we're unique in that because we kind of have quite a finite number of automotive partners, we really need to prove how well Carwow commerce media worked first and foremost. Prove its worth and prove its performance and prove the audience as well before taking that next step. And then when I think, when, how, and with whom, I think it goes without saying, sharing data compliantly is crucial. So that's why we work with the likes of InfoSum. And then I think when deciding on which partners and why we kind of launched with ITV in the first instance, we really want to work with businesses who can offer something that we can't.
Mm.
That as well as scale. Scale is really crucial for us. Um, and in all honesty, again, I guess it comes back to collaboration. We want to work with businesses that really have a collaborative nature. We work very closely with Jay and Nadine at ITV, and they have such a collaborative nature. We've launched Auto Match, and we're, all striving for the same outcome and working together to really ensure that it's a success, which, is amazing. So I think those are probably the kind of things that we'd look for in partners.
Yeah, and I was so excited when I saw the launch of AutoMatch. But anyone who might be unfamiliar, can you just give us a quick description of what AutoMatch is and kind of the initial feedback from those automotive partners that have used it?
Yeah, absolutely, of course. So AutoMatch is essentially Carwow's partnership with ITV, and it allows advertisers to target their connected TV on ITVX to Carwow's audiences. So that's Carwow's in-market audiences. So we share via InfoSum, of course, our audiences who are actively considering car purchases. And we also segment that as well, even to more granular audiences, like actively in market for an electric vehicle, actively in market for a premium vehicle. And those are two very popular segments of ours. And ultimately, it allows our automotive partners to target their connected TV advertising, which has always been really tricky within the automotive space and within the automotive category. We were originally set out this year to run 6 pilot campaigns, so that we've achieved. The initial feedback was super positive. We had lots of interest, and we're running those 6 pilot campaigns now. We've had a couple that have literally just finished, and we have already had 2 of them rebook as well. So the initial results are hugely promising. We've seen upwards of 30 to 40% uplift in targeted buyers, but not just about uplift, but actually we can see that these are much better quality of audience. So these audiences are much more likely to take action on their sites, much quicker to go down the funnel. They've got much higher dwell times as well. So that audience quality is really high from using the targeting on ITVX. And crucially, I think what's really interesting for an automotive brand is that we can also see that they're less likely to consider competitors. And in a world with Chinese manufacturers starting to have such a
Mm.
huge impact on established car brands, this is so critical. So to be able to prove that actually by running this targeting on your connected TV advertising is making this quality of audience significantly better is really key. And I'm really looking forward to being able to share more when we can.
I love that. I think it's amazing, and it makes perfect sense when I think about my own experience of car buying. It is most likely on a CarWow platform where I'm going to first kind of engage with that
Yeah.
before the automotive brand has any clue that I'm even considering a new car, right? So that ability to kind of surface that information to them makes a ton of sense. Better for me as a consumer because I get the targeted advertising that makes sense to me, that feels engaging to me. So I think that's amazing. And obviously, the flip side of that, and you mentioned some of the results you've seen, is measurement. And obviously, measurement is such a crucial part of Automatch. And more broadly, why do you feel like it is so important to offer that, both through Automatch, but also through the automotive industry as a whole?
Yeah, I think it comes back essentially to the really complex buying journey for cars. It's always been, aside from Carwow's commerce media, it's really hard to attribute automotive media and marketing. It's always been really tricky because,
Mm.
it's a squiggly consumer journey. You can walk into a retailer and just buy a car, and you have no idea what TV advertising they've seen that might have actually led them down that path. And not only that, but also we know that upper funnel TV advertising has always generally been quite hard to attribute as well. Whereas Automatch allows automotive marketeers to attribute that uplift and conversion to these connected TV campaigns. Um, and that's why measurement is so crucial. So all of the pilot campaigns that we've run have measurement studies built into them. So we've been working with an analytics partner called Sophos 3, and obviously they work very closely we collaborate between ITV Us and Sophos 3. But Sophos 3 are an analytics business within the automotive industry, and they actually use tags essentially that we can then across ITV's campaigns, but they have tags across the automotive brands website and on Carwow as well. So we're basically starting to build a really big picture of that attribution as well, and we're seeing kind of the uplift and the things that I mentioned earlier as well. So I think that for us is a bit of a game changer, but also we know we're doing something right when two brands have already
Yeah.
rebooked. So we're starting to see the value that they're getting from this type of activity.
And then I guess to that point, going through this pilot program with those brands, looking ahead, how do you envision growing partnerships like Automatch? And what factors determine who Carwow chooses to collaborate with next?
Yeah, really good question. I think first and foremost, like we part of the growing partnerships like Auto Matches, it was first and foremost we don't want to cannibalize our own successful commerce media proposition. We want to make sure that whatever we do enhances that and offers our partners extra layers of what they can do to achieve their goals. So, we've just launched on YouTube. I know it feels like we're a bit down the line, given we've got the UK's biggest automotive YouTube channel, but we've launched that, and we've launched it not as a we've launched that, sorry, as a managed service rather than making it available through a DSP. And I
Yeah.
think that's crucial to our commerce media proposition. It means that actually what we can do is start to build these media strategies for our automotive partners that not only do use our commerce media offering on the Carwow platform, but also how we can start to do that offsite and really link it all together. So that's kind of why we've gone down that route. But then I think in terms of other partnerships like like the partnership we have with ITV, um, it goes back to working with those businesses that have something that we don't offer. So
Yeah.
for us, and I think especially as automotive, I'd be really interested in looking at partnerships with maybe digital out of home partners and
Yeah.
radio partners as well. I think some radio partners, as long as we can get the kind of scale that is necessary, I think that would be a really interesting route for us to go down. And I think as well we'll also look to um, broaden our partnerships with connected TV partners as well.
Yeah, I think it's super exciting. And part of that excitement that we've all experienced, and we talked about it right at the start, is commerce media. And it is evolving rapidly. The definition of commerce media is evolving rapidly, kind of from this retail media to auto marketplaces to broadcasters. How do you see the role of media leaders like Carwow, like ITV, evolving in the shape of this kind of commerce driven advertising future we're heading towards?
Yeah, sure. I'm actually on a panel on Thursday discussing the definition of commerce versus retail media in Silly, so it's
Interesting.
definitely a key topic at the moment. I think, look, data collaboration is the driving force here. So we do commerce media super effectively. It works brilliantly. It works for our partners. It works for us. But the ITV partnership means that we can scale it, right? And I think
Mm,
that's the crucial part. We have, again, I talked about having a finite number of partners. We also really have there's, you change your car on average once every 4 years. You're only in market once every 4 years. And going to be, the second biggest purchase that you'll probably make in your life. Just, anything after buying a house. And then really, I think it's between us and our partners like ITV is our role to then evolve those audiences, right? Shape and hone that proposition. And as well as that, constantly striving for visibility and attribution as well throughout the funnel, as that is what makes commerce media so great. That being able to attribute it, and I'd like to think down the line we'll also be able to attribute it to sales as well. But watch this space. And I do think we'll see lots of I do think we'll see lots more of these types of partnerships moving forwards. Your non-traditional retailers partnering with larger scale audience platforms as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's only going to get more exciting. I think it's only going to get more interesting, and keep people like you and I talking about it, thinking about it, working in it. And obviously, it's not just commerce media that's going through a massive amount of transformation. You kind of alluded to the fact that the automotive industry is also going through a transformation, right? We've got a lot of incoming brands to the car market. You've got EV adoption. You've got shifts in regulatory and requirements, changing in consumer journeys. How do you see those shifts reshaping the automotive media strategy kind of over the next few years at least?
Yeah, I mean, have you got all day? Because I think that's what we might need here. It's a big question. I mean, honestly, the amount of transformation that the automotive industry is undergoing at the moment is wild. I think, obviously, for the sake of the podcast, I'll keep it to just a couple. I think two of the main shifts that are probably going to affect automotive media strategies the most. One, you touched on EV adoption. So there was an 80% increase in demand for EV cars or EV grant cars when they announced the grant in July. So that's huge, an 80% increase in demand for those specific cars just from the announcement of the EV car grant in July. Now, of course, that means there's now, well, there always was, but even more so now, there's much more competition for that very specific EV targeting. And as you know, we do such a great job using our commerce media proposition on Carwow of targeting that EV audience, and it performs brilliantly. But of course, there's only a finite number of those users. So actually, we sell out of products consistently. That we're constantly selling out quarters in advance of our commerce media propositions that have got the kind of EV targeting on them. And to be honest, the manufacturers just need to be much more agile and move faster. Auto brands and their agencies, I'd really like to think that we'll see a shift to kind of more strategic planning and execution and kind of planning. I know planning often, they often do kind of a year in advance, but often the kind of execution comes much, much later. And actually what they need to be doing is doing that all at the same time and kind of laying down what they want to do for the year, because actually that's how you're going to win in such a crowded market. Because actually, with such a pinpoint targeted type of product, there's only so many of them that you'll get, right? And actually that's how you're going to start to win, I think, in that respect. And then I think the other main shift is the Chinese new entrants. I mean, JQ7 was the most configured car on Carwow in April. No one had heard of them a year ago. Had you heard of JQ a year ago?
No.
Exactly.
That's incredible.
Yeah, right. So it's gone from absolutely no one knowing what the JQ brand is to being the most configured car in the beginning of this year as well. So we had JQ, Geely, and Chery all entering the market this year, and we know of at least another 3 that are going to launch kind of within the next 6 to 12 months. And these guys are really shaking up the automotive market, like really shaking it up. And more established kind of automotive brands are really kind of only just starting to realize the impact that this actually might have on their brands. And I think given the shift then to more choice, less loyalty, like strategies will have to evolve to accommodate this. And what I do think, and I'm really hopeful we're going to see, is some really radical moves and brave decisions from some of the more established and legacy automotive brands. And that I'm really excited to see.
Yeah, I think that'd be fascinating. That's an incredible statistic that was kind of the most highly configured car. And it's just incredible to think that Yes, it is often when those newcomers come in, they do shake up an industry, often shaking up an industry for the better. So hopefully, as you say, those kind of other automotive brands can react. And if you zoom out, what's one big trend or shift in media and advertising that you think will define the next, let's say, 5 years?
Oh, I feel like everyone who we have on the podcast is going to say AI, right? Like it's like a no-brainer. But I'll be more specific. I think AI-driven personalization will be a huge trend. I think I've really only seen examples on a relatively small scale so far. But I think this will absolutely explode when the capability becomes easy to access and execute. It's going to like explode. We all are like, and I'm totally here for it because we all know, how much more effective media and marketing can be when it's personalized. If you can do that at scale, I feel like that's you're onto a winner.
Yeah, I agree. And look, this podcast is all about individuals like you who are pioneering these new and exciting and incredible ways to use data to deliver those better, more personalized experiences that we've been talking about. So, when you look to people that you admire within the industry, who would you nominate for me to interview on an upcoming episode of Identity Architect?
Oh, well, looking back at who you've already interviewed, I feel like you've interviewed them all. You've had some incredible guests on Identity Architects. I'm very honored to be one of them now. I really loved watching what Paul Wright has been doing with Uber Ads, like
Yeah,
the way they are using their data to build really innovative native media products really reminds me of kind of when we started out on this journey kind of 5 or 6 years ago. Um, so I think, but obviously you've already interviewed him. So I'm always either interview him again, or
yeah,
I'm also really excited to hear about other businesses that are building new commerce media propositions. It's always really cool to hear how businesses with really rich first party data are connecting with their own audiences, but also what data collaborations they're considering as well. So if you know anyone in that space, I think you should go for them.
I love it. We'll do some research. We'll get them. We'll get them on the podcast. I think that's fantastic. Victoria, thank you so much for being on the podcast with me. I find it fascinating to hear about a brand that I admire so much, like Carwow. I was incredibly excited by the work with ITV. We obviously appreciate the partnership with Carwow so much. But thank you so much for being on the podcast and sharing such incredible insight with our listeners today.
Thank you so much for having me, Ben. I really appreciate it. And we love working with you guys as well. And we're looking forward to lots more.